The conversion of the Logos. The Logos was the cause of those who came into being, and he continued all the more to be at a loss, and he was astonished. Instead of perfection, he saw defect. Instead of unification, he saw division. Instead of stability, he saw disturbances. Instead of rests, tumult. Neither was it possible for him to make them cease from loving disturbance, nor was it possible for him to destroy it. He was completely powerless, once his totality and his exaltation abandoned him. Those who had come into being, not knowing themselves, both did not know the Pleromos from which they came forth, and did not know the one who was the cause of their existence. The Logos, being in such unstable condition, did not continue to bring forth anything like emanations, the things which are in the Pleroma, the glories which exist for the honor of the Father. Rather, he brought forth little weaklings, hindered by the illnesses by which he too was hindered. It was the likeness of the disposition which was a unity, that which was the cause of things which do not themselves exist from the first. Until the one who brought forth into the defect these things were thus in need, until he judged those who came into being because of him contrary to reason, which is the judgment which became a condemnation. He struggled against them under destruction, that is, the ones who struggled against the condemnation, and whom the wrath pursues, while it, the wrath, accepts and redeems them from their false opinion and apostasy, since from it is the conversion which is also called metonion. The Logos turned to another opinion and another thought. Having turned away from evil, he turned toward the good things. Following the conversion came the thought of the things which exist and the prayer for the one who converted himself to the good. The one who was in the Pleroma was what he first prayed to and remembered. Then he remembered his brothers individually, and yet always with one another. Then all of them together, but before all of them the Father. The prayer of the agreement was a help for him in his own return, in that of the totality. For a cause of his remembering those have existed from the first was his being remembered. This is the thought which calls out from afar, bringing him back. All his prayer and remembering were numerous powers according to that limit, for there is nothing barren in his thought. The powers were good and were greater than those of likeness, for those belonging to the likeness also belong to a nature of falsehood. From an illusion of similarity and a thought of arrogance has come about that which they became, and they originate from the thought which first knew them. To what do the former beings pertain? They are like forgetfulness and heavy sleep, being like those who dream troubled dreams, to whom sleep comes while they, those who dream, are oppressed. The others are like some creatures of light for him, looking for the rising of the sun, since it happened that they saw in him dreams which are truly sweet. It immediately put a stop to the emanations of the thought. They did not have any longer their substance, and also they did not have any honor any longer. Though he is not equal to those who pre-existed, if they were superior to the likenesses, it was he alone through whom they were more exalted than those, for they are not from a good intent. It was not from the sicknesses which came into being that they were produced, from which is a good intent, but from the one who sought after the pre-existent. Once he had prayed, he both raised himself to the good and sowed in them a predisposition to seek and pray to the glorious pre-existent one, and he sowed in them a thought about him and an idea, so that they should think that something greater than themselves exists prior to them, although they did not understand what it was. Begetting harmony and mutual love through the thought, they acted in unity and unanimity, since from unity and from unanimity they have received their very being. They were stronger than them in the lust for power, for they were more honored than the first ones, who had been raised above them. Those had not humbled themselves. They thought about themselves that they were beings originating for themselves alone, and were without a source. As they brought forth at first according to their own birth, the two orders assaulted one another, fighting for command because of their manner of being. As a result, they were submerged in forces and natures in accord with the condition of mutual assault, having lust for power and all other things of this sort. It is from these that the vain love of glory draws all of them to the desire of the lust for power, while none of them has the exalted thought or acknowledges it. The powers of this thought are prepared in the works of the pre-existent ones, those of which they are the representations. For the order of those of this sort had mutual harmony, but it fought against the order of those of the likeness, while the order of those of the likenesses wages war against the representations and acts against it alone, because of its wrath. From this is them one another, many necessity appointed them, and might prevail, and was not a multitude. And their envy, and their wrath, and violence, and desire, and prevailing ignorance produce empty matters and powers of various sorts, mixed in great number with one another, while the mind of the Logos, who was a cause of their begetting, was open to a revelation of the hope which would come to him from above.